Alright, in this video we're going to be reviewing and also applying this exterior deck stain. I'll put a link in the description below. I am in love with this stuff. But let's first take a look at my cedar deck. I live in the Midwest and we have lots of harsh conditions, and I applied this sealant and this stain to my deck about 2 years ago. Let's see how it's holding up really quickly. Now, I have part of my deck here that is enclosed in a screened-in porch, and you can see the color differentiation there between the covered part and then when it stops being covered and thus more exposed to the elements. I put a little bit of a small puddle of water here for you. Let's get down and take a look and see how well this sealant is holding up after 2 years. So it's obviously beading really nicely, almost brand new still, unaffected by the weather for the most part. Now, if you move outside, you can see the weather has definitely had more of an effect. The stain has clearly faded, and one thing that I really like about this stain is that it does not chip or flake away. It just simply fades. It's an oil-based stain, and I really appreciate that. Now, I poured some additional water out here, and let's get maybe a closer look. We'll zoom in on the water that I poured, and it sat here for a couple of minutes. You can see there's two different puddles there. The one on the left is definitely saturating into the wood, telling me the sealant has broke down and not providing that protection that I want it to. The puddle on the right there is sealed a little better, and again, this is after 2 years. Okay, I have not applied or done anything after 2 years. It's holding its, but on the edges you can still see right there we do have some saturation. So this is telling me it is time indeed to restain the deck. So that's what we're going to be doing next. Let's get started. So I'm not going to be touching or reapplying stain to the interior covered part of my screened-in porch. That's holding up beautifully after 2 years. However, the outside, the walkway, does need to be redone. So I'm going to give it a really thorough washing, actually 2 or 3 goes between soap and bleach mixture, and just clean the heck out of it really well. I'll put a link to some really nice deck wash if you're interested in the description below, should you choose to buy something that's more manufactured as opposed to just a bleach and soap mix yourself. But I'm just going to wash the heck out of it, and I'm also going to take a brush and just kind of scrub all this stuff up. This is what it kind of looks like after I have done several rounds of washing and scrubbing. Now, after everything's dried out, this is kind of what it looks like. You can see a lot of that stuff came up throughout the washing process. This is a comparison between the outside that I just washed and the covered part that I'm not going to be reapplying stain to. So after several days of it just drying without any type of rain or weather, we're ready to apply the sealant and stain. So we'll go ahead and open this can up here. It's pretty simple to do. Upon shipping, they do have this handy little lid so that the metal part doesn't just pop off or there are no leaks. They do claim the stuff to be goof proof, so you can apply it with a brush, you can apply it with an applicator, whatever your preference is. I am going to be using a brush for this application, and let's go ahead and open this up and you can take a look at the inside. Now, I did shake this can really well. It had been sitting for the whole winter. I bought it last fall and ready to apply here in the spring. And it's really water-like, I would say, even though it's oil-based. It's not super thick and gooey. And so, yeah, here is the brush I'm using. Just a cheap brush, nothing special. A 3-inch brush, you can see. And let's take it out here. Now, I built this little notch last fall to hold my grill, and you can see that this part right here, the walkway, is cedar. However, when I made this little notch out for my grill, that white wood that you see here, this is treated lumber, not cedar. Okay, so you're going to see a difference in coloration a little bit between the two woods, and this will be good for you because I don't know what kind of deck wood that you have, so you can see it go on a treated lumber and then also onto a cedar. Now, this is fresh treated lumber. It's not had any sealant applied to it before, And let's get a look here. You can see it just absolutely drinking this stuff in, just like a good stain should, right? And let's just get some more shots here of the initial application. And because it's just absolutely drinking this stain in, just sucking it up, you'd think that we'd go through quite a bit of stain, right? Well, we'll do a little level check on how much stain is being used on this deck application in just a minute, but I think you'll be surprised. All right, so we've got a full first layer on, and I'm going to wait about 45 minutes or so before I put on a second coating on that part. All right, so now we're going to apply it to the cedar that has already been stained previously, and that we are essentially reapplying the stain to 2 years later. So I'm just going to work it in the grooves really well. It's very liquidy, like I said, so you shouldn't have any problems with it. I tend to kind of goop it on and slosh it around, and then use the brush to kind of get into all the corners and crevices and whatnot. All right, so I'm actually going to start my staining process after that little notch was just stained, that treated lumber. I'm going to start over here by the door because I don't want to box myself in. And so I'm going to open the door up and just get all the way to the edge there. And you can see it go on, create some really nice color contours with the deeper groove parts of the wood, the grooves. You can see it goes on darker there, and then obviously the flat surfaces, it has kind of a lighter application, but it seems to be applying really well. It's not beating up, so that tells me that the wood has been cleaned properly, right? It's being saturated into the wood. And let's just get some additional shots here for you, just so you can see what it looks like. Let me zoom in here and get an up close shot. Look at that, just drinking the stain. And this is essentially what I want. Good coverage, uniform coverage. And look how much I've used so far. Hardly any at all. It's amazing. I love this stuff. All right, we'll speed up the process a little bit for you. Get some more shots of various techniques there of application. Just working it into the edges. And one strategy, I like to kind of gloss it on, kind of thick, and then work my brush diagonally. Since I have a lot of grooves there, a diagonal brush stroking will help get into the grooves really well to make sure that I don't miss any spots. There we go. You saw that diagonal application there. By the way, you don't want to apply this in the direct sunlight. There's not a lot of stains out there that you should use direct sunlight for. So I am working on a kind of a cloudy day, making sure that it's definitely not going to rain for 48 hours or so until it fully dries. Now we'll go back to the treated lumber real quick on my little notch out for my grill and put on a second application. Again, you can see the color differentiation a little bit between the cedar and the treated lumber. Here's the cedar applied. I'm just working my way right down the walkway, obviously. Just another angle for you. Now, you might notice it goes on a little red. That is true. However, as you just saw, there's a check for you to see how much I've used on about this much of my deck. But it goes on a little redder than I liked. And 2 years ago, when I first put this stuff on, I was a little alarmed by that. This particular color did not say it was going to be red, and so I was a little discouraged. But as you saw from the previous part of the video, the stain itself it's the same color stuff, turns a very nice dark brown, okay? So here's another look at it. 2 years old on the inside, and the reddish just freshly applied stuff on the outside, but the color will dry and brown as time goes on. So I wouldn't worry too much if it goes on a little redder than you'd like. All right, so after about an hour of being done, it's got a little residue you can see there if you rub your finger on it. So the goal is here, obviously, to let that residue fully dry. In the meantime, I am done. I'm only going to put on one coating on the cedar part of my deck. It doesn't need any more than that. It's pretty thorough, pretty uniform, and I'm happy with that. Here's another shot of it for you. And again, this is after an hour or so of drying. It looks kind of like this. And another shot coming from the stair side of the deck. All right, and after about 6 or 8 hours or so of it drying, you can see a little bit of residue on my finger there. Not a ton, but I'm definitely going to let that dry. Now, the instructions do call for it to dry for a good 24, 48 plus hours. Obviously, the longer, the better before it encounters any rain and whatnot. Here it is about 24 hours later. Let me pour a little bit of water on the old part of the deck. So this is the 2-year stain underneath the screened-in porch. And we saw this earlier in the video. Obviously, it beads up really nicely. And let's pour a little bit on the new, freshly resealed, restained part of the deck. All right, you can see no saturation at all is happening. Those little teeny beads and the big, obviously the big pools are beading very, very nicely, telling me that my deck is now sealed again. So I couldn't speak more highly of this particular deck stain. I love it. I'm going to keep buying it every single time and applying every 2 years or so, or as needed. But it holds up really well, super waterproof, and yeah, thank you so much. Hope this video has been helpful.